Howdy, I am CharLee Simons, your host here on Do Not Talk. Talk about two things you're never supposed to talk about: politics and religion. One decides what life is going to be like here on Earth, the other one decides what it's going to be like when we leave it. The silent majority has finally found its voice, and I have Kevin Annett on. Talk about somebody who's using his voice to get news and information out that nobody else is talking about. Murdered by decree? Murder by decree? What the heck? That sounds like some kind of spy intrigue novel, Jason Bourne, 007 kind of stuff. Murder by decree. He's going to tell us all about it on today's Do Not Talk. You want to help this show, you can like it right now. You'd hit that like button wherever you're watching. Please hit like. Go ahead and do it. Thank you. Appreciate it. It's all about algorithms and breaking them down. And conservatives like me, the internet, and basically social media hates us, wants to shut us up. So we have to learn how to play their game to try and get more people to hear our message. So just by liking this show makes a huge difference. If you follow wherever this is being broadcast, follow this channel, you'll really be helping. And sharing. Sharing's huge. You want more info, you want to get in touch with me, you have an idea for a show, you want to actually be on the show, you want to give, you want to help financially, CharLeeSimons.com. CharLeeSimons. CharlieSimons.com. Murder by decree. Let's get into it next. Hit it! Well, hello, my new friend. How are you?
I'm good, Charlie. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for being had. That's my favorite joke. So your last name is pronounced Annett, Annett.
You got it.
Here's what I know about you. A friend of mine, Simone Anderson, Charlie said, Charlie, you got to get this guy on. He's extraordinary. He's amazing. What he's doing is incredible, and we need more people to know about it. And I'm like, okay, send him my way. That's about the extent of what I know about you. But I actually like doing shows like that. I like it to be real. I want to
hmm
find out when my troop finds out at the same time what you're all about. Murder by Decree is a book that you've written, but that's not all you've done. Give us your rundown, please.
Well, it started 30 years ago now. I was a Protestant minister on the west coast of Canada. I was working with Native people. I found out that a lot of them had been killed off in the local boarding schools. The Catholics set up, the Anglicans, the United Church ran for over a century. Over 60,000 children were murdered in these places, concealed. I began to give a forum for that. I opened my pulpit to these people. After a little while, I got the boot for doing that. My wife was approached and told that I was never going to work again. So if she wanted to leave me, they'd pay for her divorce and take my kids, which she did. My daughters, who were 6 and 3 at the time. So none of it made sense, except to realize in hindsight that that's what you do to whistleblowers. You wipe out their life when they're onto something you don't want brought out. It came out subsequently. I worked with Native people and others all over Canada and then all over the world, brought out the hard evidence of these crimes, forced them to admit some of it. And then I got contacted from people all over the world who'd been through the same thing. We set up a tribunal in 2010. We put the Pope on trial and the Queen of England, forced out Ratzinger. You might remember Joe the Rat, Pope Benedict, forced out by a common law court trial we brought in Europe. And then that sparked a movement all over the planet, people setting up their own common law courts. Americans know all about this. They know about sovereignty. Your inherent right as the people. If the courts and the government are part of a crime, you just set up your own justice. And that's what we've been doing. So it's led to one thing after another, but it all started realizing that the murder by decree came right out of the Vatican and London. The Crown of England ordered these children murdered en masse to get the land, to get the resources, and to traffic them and do all the other sick things that people in those positions of power do with children. And we're still doing the fight. All of the evidence is murderbydecree.com. And I've written 28 books about it. You can get them all on Amazon.
My grandfather, my
In a
grandfather
nutshell.
was half Cherokee, and
Oh,
he
yeah.
told me stories. Told me stories. about being native, especially at that time being half breed, and how
Yep.
nobody liked you. Everybody was against from both
Hmm.
sides. They didn't like you.
Yep.
There's a divide
Right.
and conquer that I've seen with the native tribes that is unprecedented. And I just recently found out, I don't know about up there in Canada where you are. What province are you in, by the way?
British Columbia,
Okay,
right on the
BC.
west
Love it.
coast.
Beautiful. Um, the
Yeah.
but far left, at least Vancouver is. Um, the natives down here on the reservations are not even required to report when women go missing. Missing. It's not even reported.
Yeah. No, I know.
There's no stats on how
Right.
many women have been abducted
No.
or whatever has happened to them. There's no
Hmm.
reporting on it. I was stunned by that. Is this like all across the country? Is that the way it is with all tribes? Who decreed that? Yeah, you don't have to let us know when women show up missing. Show up missing. That's a contradiction of terms, isn't it? But you get my point. Is that same in Canada?
Yeah. It's even worse in Canada. You see, in America, Aboriginal people, they can be full US citizens. In Canada, they're not. They're what's called wards of the crown, which means you're like a child under the law. It's like when I was doing my first street ministry in Vancouver, it would be common for a Vancouver cop to empty his gun into a homeless Indian and never even be reprimanded for it, right? Target practice. I mean, it happened all the time. Trafficking Native women, a lot of them still go missing, a lot of women and children, because they're not persons under the law. It's the old colonial arrangement, right? And so that's part of why we say these crimes carry on. Big thing happening now is with the Chinese takeover in Canada. They bought up, thanks to the Trudeau government, they can station their troops in Canada. They can buy up the whole country. The oil and gas in the north, it's all on native land. So they got to wipe out the people in that area. A lot of them end up in the streets in Vancouver. You hear these stories about the Mounties and Chinese soldiers driving them off the land at gunpoint to get the
What
liquid
the
natural gas
hell?
and everything.
Seriously, that's happening now? How come I've never even heard about this?
Well, the corporate media is not going to tell you this stuff, and they're tied in a big way. And the Vatican Bank is underwriting all this. China's buying up the whole West Coast, all the containers on the West Coast, Seattle, all they're all 90% owned
Talk
by
about
China
shipping
now.
containers.
And they needed to shipping containers, all the oil and gas, the infrastructure. There's a thing called the Road and Belt Initiative, where they're buying up all the highway systems, the trains, and everything. China's taken over the whole North American economy. The Vatican Bank is underwriting that to about $1 trillion every year. And so, Canada's the breadbasket. It's got all these resources it needs. The uranium, it's all up north, and it's all
So
native
they're
people still
bypassing the
stand in the way
United
of that.
States. No need
So,
to even deal with them, especially that crazy Trump. We'll just bypass them all and go right to Canada because they have all the same resources, basically. Is that what I'm getting?
yeah, well, follow the money. It's like it's always the
And
big
far
limelight
easier to
on it
control
when you
because they're
see
used
who's
to a
behind the money.
socialistic system with their free healthcare.
Well, yeah, well, well, it isn't that
Every time I
free
hear
anyway. It's
somebody
like
in Canada say that, I'm like, oh, shut up. There's nothing free about it.
no,
Let's talk
no,
about your little free healthcare system and how ineffective that is. But anyway, another subject, another time. So please,
it's funny, Charlie. I always get about 90% of the books. No, it's about 80% of the books I sell are all from Americans, and 20% from Brits, and only about 5% of Canadians buy my of the
they
books
don't
sold
want to hear it.
by Canadians
La
because they're
la
also
la la
frightened my
la
name.
la.
Oh, I've been
Give me a
blacklisted.
Molson. Where's
Yeah,
my
yeah,
moose head? I want a
exactly.
Timmy's. That's all they care about.
Right.
Watch some soccer. I mean hockey. Soccer. Hockey. Uh,
No, I'm half American. I'm half American. My dad's from New Jersey originally, and so it's that American side of me that's saying like, what the hell? Like, how do people go along so easily? With the government tells you to do
I
something,
got
you'll
to
do
live
it.
there for a year up in the
It's
Alberta
just like
province. I loved it. Loved it. As a matter of fact, I was trying to get a job there and
it's
actually stay,
boring there.
but they would
Yeah,
not give me a work visa because the Canadian government said, we're not going to let any American have a job that a Canadian can do. I'm like, what a novel concept. I respect that. Okay, well,
yeah.
I guess I have to go back home because I only had a
No,
visitor's visa. But I loved it. I loved the people. I loved my time there. I valued it, valued them. And I look at what's happened now,
mm-hmm.
especially under Trudeau and that tutelage, that leadership. Uh, I'm stunned. I'm like, What happened to these Canadians? I thought they were stronger, smarter, and better than that, but they seem to have rolled right over. Am I wrong?
Hey, I'll tell you. Well, it's appearances are deceiving because, like, they did a poll recently, and 58% of Canadians want to cut ties with the crown. They want a republic. And back in 2015, we started up that. We got a movement, Republic of Canada. And it's got a lot of people involved in now, and cops and everything. We just say, disavow your oath of allegiance to that bozo in London. Take it to people in the Constitution, which we've never had, right? And so we tried to have our 1776, and it got defeated back in 1837. As a matter of fact, I'm proud to say my great 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 grandfather took part in it and evaded the hangman somehow. But after that, things got really messed up in Canada because the crown and the church ran everything. That's how they could kill off so many Native kids, and how they can still kill so many
The
people and get away with
church.
it.
The
Right?
church. I'm glad you said that.
Yeah,
Especially being a
yeah,
former, or maybe you still are, a Christian pastor. Um, you were targeted, even though you were part of the Black Robe Regiment, as we call them down in the United States of America. Up there, though, pastors actually giving out news, here's what's really going on, and talking about politics. Most of them are scared to death to do that now. Look what happened during the COVID shutdown
yeah,
when your own mounted
yeah.
police, supposed to be the best of the best, are going in and dragging pastors out of their churches during sermons because they dared to stay open.
Right. That was that. I knew the guy who did that in Alberta. One of them, at least. He was a Baptist minister, and I wouldn't call me a black robe because I come from a long tradition of Protestant. The name Anna was French. We were Huguenots who got burned out of France by the Catholic Church, went over to England. So Jesuit black robes, they're the ones who were behind a lot of these crimes. They set up these death camps where they killed off so
Well,
many
here in the
Native kids,
states,
right?
Black Robe
And our
Regiment, or what we call the pastors during the Revolutionary time of the United States.
oh, I
That's
see.
that's what
Okay,
they're
right.
called
Okay,
here.
I
It
get it.
obviously has a
Different,
negative
different name.
connotation up there, but down here it's positive. Um,
All right, good
yeah.
then. Okay, call me what you like. Just don't call me a cab, right?
I'm sorry you went through that with your wife leaving you over all that too. I'm very sorry, but it led you on a journey that has been several decades now. When did you first write Murder by Decree? If you have 28,
Well, this one, this this is it's a big book. It's you can get it on Amazon, but it's murderbydecree.com. It's online as well. I wrote that in 2016 to counter the government church cover up about all these crimes. It's like the serial killer gets together and appoints his own judge and jury. That's pretty much what happened. They investigated themselves and left out a lot of the stuff that is in that book. 20 years before that, I started the campaign really right after I got fired, and Native people began telling me these stories. We began publishing it. We began protesting at the churches and raised a total stink right across the
thank
country
God.
about that. And that's the only way you get results.
Thank
Hmm?
God. I mean, that's what Scripture tells us. What's done in darkness will be exposed by the light. Ephesians 5:11 is what powers this show. Be no part of the works of darkness, but instead even expose them. You started exposing them, then you find out, oh shoot, government's involved, Catholic Church is involved, and they're murdering the native
Yeah,
population to get access to the land and the resources on the land. This has been going on a while, hasn't it?
yeah, and also, oh, a long time it's been going on. But in Canada, it was like they could, the west coast of British Columbia, where a lot of these places were. There are a lot of little coves. There's a lot of places to do this stuff, and nobody ever knows about it. And it's really rich. They would build these. They call them schools. They were just death camps, right? Half the children died in them, and that's over half a century that went on, not just 1 year, but decade after decade, right? Deliberate mass murder, and they built them on valuable resources, so the church could profit from it. It's always about money. It's always about
Yeah.
profit.
Yeah. Where do we go from here?
Keep at it. It's worked in the past. It forced a pope out of power. It forced out this truth. You know, when you do the right thing, you got a lot of spiritual protection. And people gotta. I like telling my story, for any egotistical reason, but just because it shows you that if you stay at something, it hasn't a result, but people bail too quickly on this stuff
Oh, I know. Very
from
short
fear or
memory. Oh
whatever.
gosh, that's just terrible. Somebody should do something about it. Oh, look, shiny. It's true.
Right.
It's completely
Well,
true, isn't it?
it we tell people that it affects you and it can affect your children tomorrow because all these churches, especially the Catholic Church, they got a policy that when children are raped, nobody tells the cops. Everyone is silenced, and you're thrown out and excommunicated if you talk. So, like, what is that? God wants you to protect child rapists? I mean, that's what they're
Yeah,
saying.
good
It's so
point.
evil, right?
Jesus was very clear about what
Yep.
should happen, what should be done to, not what they should do to themselves, what should be done to anyone who causes any of these his children to stumble.
Yep.
Very clear, and involves a heavy millstone.
Right
Yeah,
in the ocean.
exactly. I'm stocking up on millstones.
Yep.
But the native population of it, you call them Inuit, the Inuit people, right?
Inuit are like
Inuit. Oh,
Eskimos
I'm
up north, but
go ahead.
indigenous, there are a lot of
Indigenous. Thank
different
you.
kind
Okay,
of
gotcha.
groups. But
The indigenous, are they speaking up? Are they? Do they have any resources? Do they have any access to media in particular? Are they saying anything?
not the honest ones, the ones on the ground who you never see. You see that you got two native societies. You got the bought off chiefs, chief and council, and they get all the money on the benefits. They're agents of the government. And they were picked from among the kids in these death camps who would collaborate, who would rat out the other students. They didn't get raped as often. They got better food. They became the chief. They then covered all this stuff up. I tell you, I travel a lot, and on all these reservations, guess who's trafficking the drugs? Who's trafficking the children? It's all the chief and their
Jeez.
families, and they're protected by the Mounties protect these guys because they sign over the land. They make the oil and gas deals with China. They're all being signed by native chiefs on the West Coast. These guys are hugely wealthy, these chiefs. Meanwhile, 90% of native people in Canada live below the poverty line in Mexico. Like, it's they're all starving to death on the street. And those are the ones who worked with me. They're the ones with the information. They're the ones who protested at the churches. But these chiefs and their families, they want us dead. Anyone who speaks out, and I've had 7 native friends all die, um, including a guy who saw Queen Elizabeth abduct children and they were never seen again. When he went public with that, he ended up poisoned to death in St. Paul's Hospital, arsenic poisoning, and that was part of our court case. We summoned her to appear because of her abducting these 10 children nobody ever saw again. Right? Yeah, that's my buddy William Coombs. They killed him because of what he saw that day. You know,
You are out from under that communist swine Trudeau, Justin Trudeau. What a horrific human being. How he got elected, I don't know, other than just looks good, sounds good, and he really cares. And we have the same disease down here in my state of California with our current governor hairdo, as I call him. Um, Brought nothing to the table other than he looked good and he sounded good, and it's sad and it's sick and it's bizarre, and then we all pay for it. You paid for it dearly up there in Canada under Trudeau, but you have new leadership now. Is there any light at the end of the tunnel there for you and the native population?
well, one thing we learned is there in the Canadian system there isn't any new leadership allowed, new light, because every single politician, cop, judge, they all take one oath of allegiance to Charles the Third of England and his descendants. Period. So they're legal bonded agents of one guy in London, right? And so they're not allowed to go. That's why not a single person, whether they're a conservative, liberal, NDP, no party in parliament, challenged the deal where they hand over the country to China or allowed the Treasonous Act of letting China station their troops on Canadian soil. Nobody opposed it. They weren't allowed to, right? They're all agents of the crown. That's why you need a republic. And that's why we say to people, get out, do what you guys did in 1776, create your own constitution, your own republic, start living under it. We try to set up local assemblies and courts, get people to jump ship into a different arrangement. That's the only thing that's going to change anything fundamentally. I mean, you can tinker with stuff, but they're never going to get at the heart of these crimes. It's going to continue, right? So we prove that in practice all the time. It was both conservative and liberal governments that did all these crimes, right? and shut down our
Two
work and
things
everything,
I
right?
heard about in conservative media. You never saw it on mainstream, at least not the first one I'm going to bring up. But in conservative media, we all saw and heard about and seen reports about the troops from China amassing along our northern
Yeah,
border. It was real. I don't know if it's
yeah.
still going on, but we only heard about it for,
Oh
I
yeah.
don't know, a minute, and then it all went away. And the other thing that we all heard about everybody, because they were trying to paint Trump as some kind of nut, making Canada the 51st state, which I thought this is just to rile up Trudeau and this is just to get people talking. But how real is that? What's the possibility of that, of people who want to secede from the government, what's become the communist government of the Commonwealth of England up there in Canada, and they want a different way? Is that a path?
Well, I'll tell you, we've got a lot of help. I mean, every time I show my citizenship card to a cop, he nods his head. He's heard about me. They don't do a thing. They never break up or protest. They never arrest anyone because they say, look, man, I'm under a different jurisdiction. I don't know. I'll recognize the crown. I've disavowed any real or implied allegiance to that bozo in London, right? And their whole blood soaked system. We're in our own jurisdiction, republic. You can't touch us. As a matter of fact, read this, join us, right? I say that to every cop. I hand them a flyer, right? And it circulates. They all know about this now, and they're not going to shut it down because they know it's like why they've never sued me in 30 years. They don't want this stuff in a court
No,
of record.
they
They
don't
don't want
want it
this
on
stuff on
record,
the
right?
public record. No, no way. So yeah, I mean, it's the dilemma people have when they're doing wrong. They know they're wrong. All they can do is fog it and wipe out the truth tellers, right?
I am stunned that this has been happening for a long time, and there are, of course, Native Americans down here who will say the same things happened here. But most of the places where they were forced to set up their reservations, here's your little land we're giving you. Welcome to your new home, were areas that they were not even from. The Cherokee were forced to
Mhm.
walk all the way the Trail of Tears up to the Oklahoma territory.
Yeah,
Many of them died.
yeah.
And then when they discovered oil on the land in Oklahoma, what started happening to
Mhm.
some of
What
that
a
land?
yeah.
The same thing's happening up there. I've never heard of any natives being murdered to make this happen, but I do know there's a whole lot of very dirty tribal councils. I do know that.
Well, you
Cool.
you never would hear
No.
about them when they go missing. I mean, the number of missing Native people is over the top on in both countries, right? Um, but what I say is that it's the same process happening all over the world. It's like they can't have people govern themselves. You know, um, I was just talking to a guy in Texas. Okay, I've been helping them set up their own common law courts there, right? And this guy, a friend of his, just got 100 years in prison because of failure to appear 4 times. 25 years automatic jail for failing to appear when he didn't even get a notice to appear. Okay. And like, where is this coming? Where is the rule of law? Right? It's just gone. So, and obviously they're being targeted because they're talking common law sovereignty. I knew a group of farmers in South Dakota, same thing happened to 10 years ago, right? They were identified that these corrupt judges were foreclosing on farms in collusion with the banks and the mortgage companies, right? They tried to get the U.S. Marshal in Minneapolis to do it, and he said, "I'm powerless. I can't do anything about these judges. Don't even try." Next thing they know, 3 of them end up in Duluth in a federal prison, 99-year sentence for copyright infringement because they tried to create their own stamps saying we're kind of a self-governing assembly here, right? Like, which is your right as Americans under the
Mhm.
Constitution, right? So, like, what happened to it on the ground? Where's the Constitution? Like, how did,
Great question.
you know?
It's not going to be applied to anybody who's trying to do gain access to anything through nefarious reasons. We have to speak up. We have to say something, and we're not until now.
Well,
I have.
yeah, I mean, you gotta just remember your roots. Where do you come from in America? Remember your roots. That's all you need to do. It's a foreign idea. In Canada, when you talk governing yourself, everyone says, "What are you, crazy? Are you a traitor to the crown?" I say, "Yeah, I am." But they're a traitor to humanity,
I
right?
agree. Um, where do we reach you? How do we find out more about what you're doing and be a part of it? How can we help?
I work with a lot of people in the States. As a matter of fact, in August, I'm coming down to give a whole speaking tour. So book me in. I'll come your way and we can do some meetings, talks. Um, you can reach me angelfire101 at
Angel
protonmail.com and or two angelfire
101.
101
Okay,
at proton at
got it.
protonmail.com. Murderbydecree.com and our Republic website, republicofcanada.org, Kanata, republicofcanada.org. That's a native name,
I was
actually,
going to ask you
Canada.
about that.
It means it's a Mohawk word meaning where the people sit as one around the council fire. It was the original model of consensual democracy. That, in fact, in the Federalist Papers, they quote the Six Nations. They don't quote European because Europe didn't have a notion of democracy where people govern themselves, right? But the native people did. The way they would consult everyone in the longhouse was equal, right? And so that Canada, republicofcanada.org is our
Good.
site. And
You mentioned something earlier
like I
too that
say, go.
surprised me, but I hadn't even
Yeah,
thought about it. Of course, you wouldn't. You mentioned the oath of office. If you're serving in law enforcement, you're serving in the military. We all swear the same oath. Being an Army guy, I've sworn that oath. Ours is different from yours, apparently, because we swear
yeah,
an oath to protect and defend our United States Constitution. Yours does not.
right, right. In Canada, or you mean in
Canada.
Canada? Oh, Canada. No, the oath of allegiance is to one man, and
That's the King of England, or
the governance is, yeah, king to the monarch and nobody
which is
else.
crazy.
So, like John Adams
That makes
said,
sense.
yeah,
Go
John
ahead,
Adams
John
said,
Adams.
we're ruled. He said we're ruled by law, not by one man, by men. You get rid of the monarchical system, and you rule by law. The law the people establish, embodied in the Constitution. That's the highest law, right?
Yeah.
And that's our model for Canada as well. That's what we're trying to create. We're basing it on the U.S. Constitution.
When I lived up there for half a year, the Queen was still alive, and I don't know about now, but her picture was on all the money, and I always thought, why are they sticking with England this way? But then the more I learned, I went, basically they are England. They're the West Coast England with the monarch family still on their currency, and as you just said, their oath of office, swearing it to the King of England, is baffling to me.
Especially when
Why?
he's a moron as well. Doesn't help. But you know,
I
no,
wish he were stupid. I think, unfortunately, it's worse than that. I think he's wicked, downright wicked.
definitely we can get into that maybe in another show. But he had a role in a lot of these children going missing. Part of these satanic cults we unearthed in Europe and over here.
I would love to talk to you more about that.
Okay.
In the meantime, though, look him up. Murder by Decree is the book that he has written, and I guess there's several. There's a series of them.
28
Um,
books. They're all on Amazon. Just put in my name, Kevin Annett, on Amazon. You'll see all of them.
I can only imagine the crap you've had thrown your way.
Oh, yeah.
Any death threats?
Well, attempts as well. They almost killed me in 2021, poisoned. Usual physical attacks, defamation. It's mostly just the smear campaign. They don't want to kill me outright. It creates a martyr. You want to discredit, make somebody fear. If I was an
Discredit.
idiot,
That's right.
discredit. That's the more effective. Character assassination is always more powerful than if I'm killed. People will go, "Hey, I guess he was onto something," right? Right, and then it creates more interest when you kill someone, unless they get too dangerous.
Kevin, this is
But
so huge and so scary and so just absolutely downright frightening that the government that you're supposed to be trusting with your safety is literally murdering your own native population and anyone else that gets in the way, apparently. That's frightening as
mhm.
hell. Are you the only one talking about this, writing about this in the entire nation?
To the degree that I talk about, I don't see anybody else. Those who have tried go missing or get silenced. Um, yeah, so I've been kind of leading on this for a long time, but fortunately, other people have picked it up, and it's like lighting many brush fires. It's happening all over. Um, so yeah, I've been at this 30 years now. So I guess you say I started it. Yeah.
I think that it's of interest to us here in the U.S. as well because anything that's happening up there that's so outrageous, I can pretty much guarantee it's happening down here too.
Oh yeah, of course. It's about the big money behind child trafficking and genocide and all of this stuff. And like I mentioned, the Chinese tentacles are everywhere now in North America, right? They don't distinguish
And they
between.
use our as things that we've done that we set up and thought, well, this is a good natured, this is the right thing to do, like making them a sovereign people, not beholden when they're on their reservation to anyone outside law enforcement. And bad guys come in and utilize our own laws against us. It's a
Oh yeah,
great place to hide. It's a great place to do all kinds of activities, isn't it now? Because we can't really do anything to stop it or even investigate it, can we?
no. Well, I mean, camouflage. They hide behind like churches. They're the best fronts for child trafficking, right? And they're tax exempt. They're a haven. I found that out when I worked at the United Church Mission in Toronto just before I went to Port Alberni. Huge amounts of money getting laundered through the mission, right? We had proof of it. Went to the cops and they threatened us not to go further because all the churches are a big money laundering agency, for the mob. I mean, the uh, Vatican Bank, one of their main jobs, and this has been proven by guys like there was a Washington, D.C. lawyer called Jonathan Levy. He proved that the mob has had over 15 billion laundered by the Vatican Bank in just the last decade, right? So how come they're not being prosecuted for this stuff when the proof's all there, right? They're above the law, these churches. Right?
Lord help us. Lord help us.
The Lord helps those who help themselves.
Yeah.
We are the
Yeah,
medicine.
well, I don't know what I can do, and that's the problem. We look at there's so many things going on now, and we're like, I don't know what to do, so I'm just going to go back to doing nothing. And we slide back into
Well,
apathy, and it's a defeatist attitude. What can I
because
do? Well, you
it's
can
like,
maybe tell somebody else about it.
the ostrich hides his head under the ground, but it doesn't protect his body. He still can get killed even if his head's under the ground. And that's what I say to people. We're all exposed. We're all endangered by this. You got to fight back.
Amen. Well, thank you, my friend. And is there anything else that I didn't cover or didn't bring up that you'd love for us to know down here?
Well, it's a whole big topic, but the whole thing of the satanic ritual networks and that, and the Ninth Circle, there's a case we're bringing against the present Pope, who may be called an American. In fact, he's part Peruvian, part American, and he's deeply implicated in these cultic activities, child killing activities. So we've had eyewitnesses come forward now to confirm that. And so we'll get into that. We'll do another program on all of that.
Yes, we will. Thank you, my friend.
Okay, man.
Talk to you.
Talk to you
It
again.
was a it was a pleasure. You want to contact me, you want to get in touch, you want to help this show anyway, financially, just sharing, booking a slot on the show, charliesimons.com is the best place to do it. charliesimons.com, CharLeeSimons. Kevin Annett, look him up, get his book, start following what he's doing, get outraged. I know it seems overwhelming. I know it does. I get it. I feel it sometimes. We got to pray that away. We can't hide away our light. We can't cover it with a basket, like Jesus said, and hide it in the back room. We got to shine our light. We're to be no part of the works of darkness, but instead even expose them. Start exposing them. Don't let just people like me hang out there. And Kevin, if you know something, they keep saying if you see something, say something. But most people they won't even share this show on their social media pages. They're afraid. I don't know what to do about that. Contagious is courageous. I hope it applies. But in the meantime, please pray for Kevin. Please pray for him and his family and those involved, for his safety, for his health, that he can be an effective voice for the Lord and getting out, exposing this darkness. Lives are involved, very innocent lives. May God bless you and keep you. May God bless America and North America and South America. But most importantly, America bless God. Wow.